Namaskar, Rakshak from NFL Masala here. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 23 of NFL Masala. And before we start this episode, Anant and I wanted to acknowledge one major thing that happened. So last episode, which was Season 3, Episode 22, we just realized that episode, which I recorded with Abhishek Ramani, was our 100th episode of NFL Masala. So with that being said, Anant and I would like to thank you to all the listeners from around the world that have stopped and listened to our podcast on our platforms, Google, Spotify, Apple, Pocket Cast, and Season 3 on YouTube. And also checked out our Instagram page at NFL Masala 2022, and also the Twitter /X page, which is with the same username at NFL Masala 2022, all lowercase. So with that being said, I would like to say thank you on behalf of Anant and I. We would like to say thank you so much for being a supporter of this podcast. And with that being said, today we'll be recapping Week 10 and previewing Week 11, but mainly with Eagles stuff. And with that being said, let's get on with the major breaking Dhamakadar news that came out. This was on November 12th, yesterday, according to ESPN. It was noted that Chicago Bears offensive coordinator Shane Waldron was fired with 10 months after being hired for the job. And they announced it one day after Matt Eberflus promised changes and adjustments for the struggling Bears. And with that, passing game coordinator Thomas Brown has been promoted to offensive coordinator. Now, according to ESPN, Eberflus said this, and I quote, "After evaluating our entire operation, I decided that it is in the best interest of the team to move to in a different direction with the leadership of our offense. And this decision was well thought out, one that was conducted deliberately and respectively. I would like to thank Shane for his efforts and wish him the best moving forward." And it's been, and I think it kind of warrants, it kind of makes sense because this is a Bears offense. I mean, this is a new Bears team that had the high hopes of getting a star QB, which they did in the draft with Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. But however, he's not been doing so well. He's been struggling, and the Bears are currently 4-5. They lost 3 straight games, only scoring just 27 points over the stretch and just averaging around 277.6 yards per game, which is the third lowest in the NFL. And this is surprising because Shane Waldron was hired by the Bears in January 2023, January 23rd, after spending his previous 3 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, and he replaced Luke Getsy, who was fired after 2 seasons in Chicago, but then became the Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator, only to be fired earlier this month. So, and I think Waldron was hired to be that mentor and develop Caleb Williams into that pro level and something for the Bears to compete in this NFC North division, which is now heavily dominated by, some technically with the Vikings, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. The Lions who are currently leading on top. And even with getting that high majority, getting that new offensive coordinator stuff with Waldron as the head, and getting Caleb Williams, getting Rome Odunze, and all those other offensive talent levels, especially Keenan Allen, it's been underperforming for the Bears. So I think after that home loss to the Patriots, in which Williams completed 16 for 30 passes, 120 yards, lowest passing outputting since his debut against the Titans, which just us throwing for 93 yards. I mean, it's been very bad, and he was sacked 9 times, especially holding the ball. And I think it could be, and I honestly think I don't know if that was the change needed. They should have kept with Waldron, but then again, Matt Eberflus may have some idea on like what he wants to do, but I honestly don't think it's the right move to hinder this development for Caleb Williams, and it could be a bit of a setback. So there's that. And with that being said, we go on to we now go on to recap Week 10. For us Eagles fans, this is Cowboys week. This was Dallas week. And the Eagles, I said the Eagles needed a statement win, and I predicted that it would be a very close game, 30-21 Eagles, because Sirianni will do some stupid shit. I was wrong. I stand corrected because this game was not even close from the beginning, although it was a bit scary until the late in the until start of the second. How do I say this? Before the first half ended, to the rest of the game, it became what we call belt to ass. That is right. Welcome to belt to ass sequence, Dallas. Y'all got the Dallas Cowboys got their asses handed by yours truly, the Philadelphia Eagles, 34-6 at AT&T Stadium. How about them Cowboys, baby? And it breaks a long losing streak for the Eagles because since 2017, which was that Super Bowl season, the Eagles have not beaten Dallas in Dallas. And that streak has snapped. And I want to start off with first the Eagles offense. It was literally a tale of two halves for Jalen Hurts. Especially in the first half, I saw a lot of times like and Hurts, he was sacked 5 times, threw a bad pick, and had 2 turnovers in this game in the first half. Sacked 5 times, 2 turnovers. Especially with AT&T Stadium, in which like one side there was so much bright light coming into the area, in which like everyone was was like blinded, like what the hell are we seeing? I mean, I'll get to that part, but it was it was very questionable. But I would say this: Jalen Hurts on that first. On the interception, like this is the first time like Jalen Hurts has turned over the ball, but this time he turned it over twice since the Buccaneers games. But so far he's done a pretty good job at taking care of the ball. But that pick against Goddard in the red zone, this was the start of the second quarter, from what I recall. Hurts is stepping back to pass. He holds on the ball a little bit too longer, and it was intended for Dallas Goedert. And had he had thrown it quicker, Goddard would have caught it, immediate touchdown. Or instead, you could have opted to run the ball, and it would have made a lot more, and it would have worked well for this Eagles offense. Just continue on piling up with the run game. You could have had it could have been like 14-3, but instead, Trayvon Diggs makes a great play on the ball and intercepts it, which is then the Cowboys take over. And then on the other drive, this was the drive before the Cowboys scored the second field goal. Jalen Hurts is stepping back to pass, and Micah Parsons beats Fred Johnson, and he makes a great play inside. And Hurts, if you're going to protect the ball, use 2 hands. He gets strip sacked, and Saquon Barkley, and it was recovered by one of the Cowboys defenders. But luckily, he was able to rebound big time before halftime, and he completed the second half almost like perfect level before he was being benched by Kenny Pickett, which is what we wanted. We wanted one of the goals for this Eagles team was to get to a big lead and then rest the starters, because they have a quick turnaround time. They have less time to like make a turnaround and rest and recuperate, because from that Sunday game, they only had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday is the Commanders game against a very tough NFC East opponent. So the Eagles had to dominate early and rest. And they did that. So Jalen Hurts, he was able to finish with 14 for 20, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he also rushed for 2 yards. And if you wanted to talk about some stats that I saw from Jalen Hurts, let me share my screen in this one. And I think this will be very influential on this one. So with this, like if you look at this, Jalen Hurts, his passing yardages from the Eagles' victory, He only had a throw time of 3.3 seconds and an adjusted DOT of 12.4 yards, which is plus 18.2, and an explosive EPA per play of 0.07. When he was pressured, he was 7 for 9 for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns, which shows that he's improving himself against the blitz. And again, this shows that Jalen Hurts is improving as hell. Because last year, the biggest problem with Jalen Hurts was what will happen if defenses were to load up the box and attack him via blitz. So what does that do, and how do you combat it? Hurts, I think, like with Kellen Moore being that offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts stepped up, and I thought it was very good for him. And for his rushing numbers, he had 7 rushes for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns, one of them being a tush put, being the brotherly shove. But I want to talk about one area in which they, especially if you go look at the drive chart, I thought this was very, very important. After Jalen Hurts fumbles and the Eagles defense holds off the Cowboys at the goal, in basically the first and goal in the red zone, only allowing 1 yard and making them hold them to a field goal 7-6. Jalen Hurts goes methodical. 1st and 10, attacks to AJ Brown, and then then of course a small route to Devontae Smith. And speaking of Devontae Smith, he was targeted less, two catches for like 19 yards. I felt that. I mean, yes, AJ Brown is a great receiver. He did have a quite 100+ receiving yards, no touchdowns, but you got to feed the ball more to Devontae Smith, because if AJ Brown is going to be out, Smith has been your best option, and I want to see more distribution of targets for him. But back to the drive, 1st and 10 at the Philadelphia 16. It attacks a little bit short right to AJ Brown. AJ Brown has that yak ability. And then 1st and 10, Devontae Smith. 2nd and 5, of course, an incomplete. Then 3rd and 5, again, short passes to AJ Brown, who runs for 18 yards. And they're methodically using the drive. And then, of course, one of the big plays was Jalen Hurts. 1st and 10 at the Dallas 47. He scrambles up, knowing that there's a blitz coming in. He says, "Okay, I won't be able to throw it on time." Goes for the run, scrambles up to the middle before getting tackled by Malik Hooker for 24 yards, basically in field goal territory. And then, of course, with Gainwell, then 2nd and 1 at the Dallas 14, he's moving. Jalen Hurts moves out of the pocket, dodges the blitzer, and makes a perfect throw to Dallas Goedert. That is what we wanted to see from Jalen Hurts. Can he make that improvement? Can he make those throws while facing off while facing pressure? And he was able to do it. And Jalen Hurts' ability to use his legs and run, brilliant. I love it. And then another play I want to talk about. And then with this, and this after halftime, Eagles' first possession, they punt the ball. They hold the Cowboys to a punt. And then the second drive in the second half for the Eagles, just a brilliant combination of using the running game from Saquon Barkley, who had 14 carries for 66 yards. I mean, credit to the Cowboys defense. They held Barkley to less than 70 yards, or they didn't get burned for 100 yards this time. But then again, I saw less snaps for Barkley, which I thought was the wise decision. And Hurts, I mean, Barkley straight up the middle was able to attack for some plays. And then apparently, then I also noticed, like, hey, Devontae Smith was also instrumental, because he did force a couple of penalties against the Cowboys. And this is a Cowboys team that was entering with Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs. Micah Parsons, who was returning after an injury. But I'll say this: the Cowboys were definitely without DeMarcus Lawrence, and I believe some parts of like Demarion Overshown and Deron Bland. So yes, they were pretty dinged up in the defensive side. And Dallas, in the Cowboys offensive side, they were going in with Cooper Rush, not Dak Prescott. And we'll get to the defensive part of that soon. But on that touchdown drive this in the second half, like as Jalen Hurts is as they're using a beautiful combination of the run and pass. I thought this was really cool. 3rd and goal at the Dallas 5. Hurts, short pass, and guess who's open? Johnny Wilson, the rookie from Florida State. And he may be like one of the tallest receivers in that in this Eagles lineup, but he was definitely used as to be like designed for like goal line 50-50 balls and 50-50 catches for touchdowns. Although he was denied a touchdown because of a passing interference against the Jags. He got it clean and he got his first career touchdown. And it was so funny as he was spiking it, Saquon Barkley had to run up to him. It's like, no, this is the ball. You keep it. And I thought that was pretty good. And I think from there, and I mean, I want to talk about the other one, the second Eagles scoring drive in the second half. How on earth do you go for a 1st and 10 at 17, Philadelphia 17? Jalen Hurts throws a beautiful deep pass, which was, I mean, AJ Brown is just so damn good. I just don't know how. He is a human being. He is not a human being. I mean, first it was Saquon Barkley, and this was good, and it was so good, man. I mean, I don't know. I'm just I'm just amazed by that catch because like first we saw like the Saquon Barkley hurdles the guy backwards, and then we see Saquon Barkley. I think there was like one play when they had that first touchdown drive thanks to a Cooper Rush fumble, missnapping the ball. He did have one highlight in which I can try and show it. This is from Philly. Luckily, Philly Voice has it available, so let me try and share this with you. So, with this being said, I am going to the screen. Hurts, he looks around, throws it. Saquon Barkley's right there. What does he do? Skips to 3 and 4, and he's able to get the 1st and goal in time for the tush push. That is just insane. How do you even stop that? It's just too much. And I mean, I would, and I mean, like, and of course, like those, it was a quiet game, and of course, we got to talk about Jahan Dotson. He had a game, had another big one catch, long distance play, one catch of 27 yards. I felt that he could have attacked the middle of the field more with not just Devontae Smith. I mean, I could have seen a little bit more for Devontae Smith, and definitely more for. I mean, Goddard did get some catches, 2 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. I would have liked to see more Calcaterra, Gainwell, Goddard, and Smith. Yes, AJ Brown is good, but also wanted to see more Dotson because for Jalen Hurts, it's good that you're throwing to your best receiver, but you kind of need to diversify your portfolio because if you're going up against really stellar defenses, you need to know which other players that you can trust. If AJ Brown is shut out, who else are you going to depend on? If Devontae Smith is shut out, you know you can get back to AJ Brown, but this is where the Kellen Moore defense. I want to see more mesh routes. I would definitely like to see a little bit more crossers, attack the linebackers if they're weak and all that. But one stat I really wanted to see, I noticed, is that the third quarter, the Eagles had scored 14 points on 116 total offensive yards and 8 first downs. I mean, that is just insane. Yeah, and with that, let's continue on with the Eagles defense against a banged-up Cowboys offense. I mean, the Eagles defense did not come to play. They came to dominate. And by the way, they forced a very bad and injured Cowboys offense. Excuse me. Because the reason why I'm coughing is because I still can't believe it. They forced 5 consecutive turnovers. I mean, they forced 5 turnovers on this Cowboys team. 4 fumbles, 1 interception. And when I read this, I literally could not believe, excuse me, that this Eagles defense held the Cowboys to 145 total yards. Cooper Rush, who was starting this game, was held to 45 yards of passing. If you want to talk about being shut down, the best receiving target for the Cowboys was their tight end Jake Ferguson. 4 receptions for 24 yards. CeeDee Lamb was held 6 to 21 yards. That is just insane. CeeDee Lamb, who has been a pain in the ass for this Eagles defense in the past, he was held to less than 30 yards and no touchdowns. How do you explain that? How? I just don't get it. And one of the things I said, for the Eagles to win against the Cowboys, you have to win the turnover battle. First, one of the early Cowboys drives, second drive for the Cowboys, Cooper Rush muffs a snap, recovered by Milton Williams. The Eagles are able to score. And and then, of course, and then we have to talk about and then after as the Cowboys are driving in, one of their first red zone trips. When you in doubt that you had Rico Dowdle playing pretty well, why on earth is Cooper Rush handing it over to Zeke Elliott, and he fumbles it into the end zone for Cooper DeJean, the rookie, to grab his first turnover? And you know who this was held by? Zach, one of the Eagles signings for Zach Bond. I mean, Howie Roseman should be given a crown for finding new Eagles legend in linebacker Zach Bond. He might be the best linebacker in Eagles history. So far, he is allowing 72.6 passer rating when targeted. PFF has given him the the second best linebacker. Gave him the ranking of second best linebacker in coverage this season, behind Fred Warner. He is responsible for 2 fumbles in this game. How insane is this? He has been a beast. I mean, he was dominant against the run. So far, he leads all linebackers in defensive stops, which are tackles that result a failure, constitutes a failure for the offense. He has 40, and he hits hard. And when he forced 2 fumbles to bring up to 3, Fred Warner, he's 1 behind Fred Warner, and he can also rush the passer. I think this is just insane, and I think Howie Roseman needs to extend Zach Bond for more. And what this does, when Zach Bond, who was originally drafted, when he was originally played like that defensive and outside linebacker, brought into Philadelphia to play inside linebacker, he's excelled it. And that allows Nakobe Dean, the second linebacker, to attack, to be that blitzing linebacker, which he's done well in Georgia. And this is just a beautiful setup. And of course, the biggest credit goes to Vic Fangio. I mean, one stat, it took 56 plays for the Cowboys to produce 146 yards, which is 2.6 yards per play. And the Eagles allowed 6 points on 2 field goals, and both of those Cowboys scores came on short fields. I mean, after all, yeah, they gave it from that Cavante Turpin kick return, and that Hurts fumble. As of now, like, Fangio's defense has prevented 3 out of the Eagles' last 5 opponents from scoring a touchdown. After just allowing 4 touchdowns against Tampa Bay in Week 4, They've only allowed 4 total touchdowns in 5 games. How insane is this? Yes, you're playing bad quarterbacks, but this Fangio defense has done pretty damn well. And if you want to talk about turnovers being a crucial thing, not only did Milton Williams get that, Bryce Huff was also in the mix. I noticed that Jalen Hunt had twice as more snaps than Bryce Huff, but Bryce Huff, he forced a sack fumble when he was able to attack from one of the outsides, strip sacks Cooper Rush, which was then recovered by Zach Bond. I did notice, yes, Jalen Hunt did have twice as many snaps as Bryce Huff. He tipped a pass that was nearly picked up by Nakobe Dean, almost, and then Jalen Carter, definitely effective. I thought he was like the best interior defensive lineman for the Eagles. He had 4 pressures, 4 total tackles, 2 solos, 2 QB hits, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 sack. And I want to say a huge credit to rookies Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean for shutting down this Cowboys receiving core. CeeDee Lamb, Jaden Tolbert, etc. And Cooper DeJean tied with Zach Bonds for 3 stops, 1 against CeeDee Lamb. And he also had a 31-yard punt return to set the offense up at that plus 37-yard for that touchdown drive, which gave us a 15-point lead, aka the Johnny Wilson touchdown drive. And also, he recovered a fumble by Zeke, which I mentioned earlier. Outstanding red zone defense, and and of course Quinyon Mitchell, aka he's now been given the nickname Quinyanimo Bay. And by the way, Quinyon Mitchell was targeted 4 times and forced a tight window on 3 of those 4 targets. Cooper DeJean has allowed a catch rate over expectation of only negative 22.9%, allowing 5 yards on 5 total targets. This is by Shane Half of the Eagles Pinpool Network and Bleeding Green Nation. And I mean, this is just insane. And of course, I did notice like during some parts of the game late in the 3rd or 4th quarter, it was so bad that they decided to bring in the Cowboys decided to put in Trey Lance on some plays. And I thought like, okay, let's see what he has. And I think like Lance had like 1 snap, which I thought like, okay, if you're going to evaluate Trey Lance after making that trade with the Niners on that former 1st-round pick, what are you going to do to, help him with his development? And then I see Lance throw like a deep target. And I believe this was to CeeDee Lamb pulling up the drive on this one. He throws a rocket, but guess what? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's now getting a little bit into form of his 2022 version, he was able to get a pick. Just brilliant. And I mean, and of course, I'm going to make the case for Quinyon Mitchell. He definitely won't win Defensive Rookie of the Year because it's just counting stats. But if he has an interception or 2, Quinyon Mitchell's in that, and he's been playing extremely well. And I mean, Chauncey Gardner, he took advantage of like a 3rd down quarterback, which was Trey Lance, made a beautiful pick at the downfield throw. 2 interceptions for CJ in the Eagles' past 3 games. Isaiah Rodgers, he did well when he had to film for Darius Slay. When Slay got injured for a bit, he allowed only a 42.1 passer rating when targeted, 14 tackles with 0 misses, which is extremely well. And I mean, it's just it's just insane for this. And I mean, like Darius Slay, an injury concern for Darius Slay when he had to step out of the game was so-called with a groin injury, I think. But luckily, he was able to come back in. I mean, the way the Eagles dominated a very bad Cowboys offense, that's what you're supposed to do. And I mean, the Cowboys have lost 4 straight to drop to 3-6. This is a very important win for the Eagles because they're currently now the NFC East leaders, and they're sitting in number 2 in the play if the playoffs were to start today, behind number 1 Detroit Lions, and because the Commanders lost a very close game to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, the Steelers won 28-27. I mean, it's the might of Steeler football. What do you expect? And of course, the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl, which is what I mean, in the words of urinating tree, that's all I could say. But with that being said, I mean, as an Eagles fan, I'm very happy about this, but they can't rest because it's on to the next game, which is week 11. Eagles versus Commanders. Yes, this is a Thursday night game. And it's a quick turnaround for two NFC East leaders in need for better playoff positioning. And I will break this down into two parts. Eagles offense versus the Commanders defense. Yes, Dan Quinn has done a great job in rebuilding this Commanders defense. However, as I'm going through some stats from Philly Voice, thanks to Jimmy Kempski, the Commanders don't have a good defense across the board. They may have the players, but it's, how do I put it, not that impressive, to say the least. I mean, if you want to look at the depth chart, some players that can give you some trouble: Cleveland Farrell, Daron Payne. I mean, Daron Payne, Deshaun or Johnny Newton, Dorrance Armstrong, Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, Dante Fowler Jr., Benjamin St-Juste, Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin, Mike Sainristil. And yes, they did pick up Marshawn Lattimore during the trade deadline, and unfortunately, Lattimore will not be playing against the Eagles because he's still recovering from that hamstring injury. So, looks like he'll be mainly Benjamin St-Juste and Mike Sainristil. But if I were to talk about the Commanders' defense, like, they're ranked 25 in defensive DVOA, 20th against the pass, 24th against the rush. If you want to talk about the run defense, the Commanders' defense is allowing 142.1 rushing yards per game. That's how much they're allowing. And they're allowing a first down and 7.9 first downs per game, close to 8. Rushing yards per attempt, 4.8. Basically, second and 5, third and 5 or something. And rushes of 20-plus yards allowed, they're allowing 10. Their last 3 games against the run, they've allowed, against the Bears, they've allowed 202 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns out of the 33 rushes. Against the Giants, 31 rushes, 164 yards, 1 touchdown. Against the Steelers, 43 rushing yards, 140 and 1 touchdown. So far, I'm seeing like their rushing yards, like, they have done a pretty good job in like limiting Najee Harris, and they did force turnovers on Jaylen Warren. But however, this is Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley can run as hell, and I think it is. I think if you want to help, no correction. If the Eagles want to know how they can help Jalen Hurts attack this defense, there's one thing that they have to depend upon. They need to feed Saquon the ball. The Eagles, ever since the bye week, after the bye week, the Eagles have rediscovered their identity, which was first, they're a run-first team. And Saquon Barkley is rushing. It has 991 total rushing yards. He's averaging 5.8 yards per rushing attempt. And he has 6 rushing touchdowns. I know he should have more, but he also has that ability of one of those explosive long runs. And as much as I give credit to the Commanders' defense, especially with like Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, or maybe Deshaun Newton, I think Saquon Barkley will have a much better success because he has a better offensive line to work with, especially an Eagles offensive line that is getting back Jordan Mailata. And speaking of protection, to protect Jalen Hurts, he has to protect the ball, and he cannot turn over nor take a sack, because sacks and turnovers are drive killers for an Eagles team. Luckily, with Jordan Mailata, he's going to come in, and he'll basically match up against the Commanders' best chance for attacking the edge against either Dorrance Armstrong or Dante Fowler Jr., both ex-Cowboys, or from that Dan Quinn type of defense. I mean, if you are attacking, and not only do I want to see Saquon attack more, I would definitely like to see more options for Gainwell and Shipley. I mean, design zone runs, or when it's open, or dump it to your running back. I mean, for Jalen Hurts, if he's about to get sacked, throw it out of bounds, but next to the closest receiver. And if you're going to take a sack, two hands, don't fumble it, don't do too much, release it quickly. And I will also like to see attacking the middle of the field option, especially, I mean, their linebackers in Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. You don't want to underestimate them, but I still think you can attack that area of the field because, especially with Goddard and Calcaterra, I mean, this opens a stupid amount of options for, I mean, when I mean like in that term, stupid, it means like, holy shit, this is so fucking good. And for Kellen Moore, he will be salivating. And I think this would be beautiful to see if we can try and get some crossers, especially this could be a big game for Devontae Smith or Jahan Dotson, because AJ Brown, he's most likely going to be matched up against Benjamin St-Juste. St-Juste is more of the lengths. He's a big corner at 6'3", but he's definitely slow. So he's known to be. He has had 11 penalties in 2023. So far, he has 5 passing interferences in 2024 as of now. And he has to be grabby. I mean, if you looked at his matchup against Mike Williams, one of the Steelers' recent picks, he's not been so good. I also think like maybe if Ertz gets a good look and AJ Brown's able to beat off Jeremy Chin, I would say attack that. I would say attack that spot. AJ Brown can make it too. But also on the other side, you would have to look at Mike Sainristil still, the corner from Michigan, who I thought he was like one of my sleeper corner picks if the Eagles did not go corner in the first round. He also, I mean, he has played wide receiver in Michigan, which he was like 37 for 539, 37 catches, 539 yards, 5 touchdowns. Before that, he moved to the slot corner position. He's very tough and physical. And I mean, he has to play. He was forced to play outside because Emmanuel Forbes, who the Commanders have picked in 2023, he's been basically a bust. But Sainristil, he's great. He's a great feisty corner, but he's 5'10", 182 pounds. I think you could try and put up Devontae Smith against him, but Sainristil will give him a fight. So this could be an option in which Jahan Dotson could get himself a big game, especially in those long, deep passes that Jalen Hurts would like to use for Jahan Dotson. Or maybe this would be a good use for tight ends, for 2 tight ends and play action. And with Jalen Hurts, he's under and when I saw Jalen Hurts go under center and using it effectively, that's what I like to see. It will be. I mean, but then again, like the Commanders' defense is very, very bad. It's bad, but you cannot underestimate it. And you have to eat. You have to eat with the run and try and get some things to it. And you don't need to overuse the tush push too much, but use it when you actually need it. And Nick Sirianni just has to take the points. Now we have to focus on the big picture. Eagles defense against the Commanders offense. The question is, how do you stop Jaden Daniels and this new look offense led by former Texas Tech head coach, former Arizona Cardinals head coach, and current offensive coordinator for the Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury? Eagles defense under Fangio has been very, very good. I mean, from what I've understood, 5th best defense overall. First in EPA per play since the bye week. Jaden Daniels right now, I'm going to say this. He is on his way to win the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year, or NFC, if it's for NFC and AFC, but mainly NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, if there was an award, a combined award for that, Jaden Daniels was getting it. He's been playing so much better than Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, he's had 68.7 passes complete on 8.2 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And not only that, he's able to run. He has 85 carries for 464 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, if I'm the Eagles, you need to first neutralize the run game. And yes, Brian Robinson Jr., the Commanders' basically their Commanders' number one running back, will be available for this game. Yes, it is not going to be easy, but you know what? Every game is not going to be easy because this is an NFC East division game. You expected this to happen. And if you want to take a further look at Brian Robinson Jr., as I'm pulling up his stats, when he is healthy, he's been pretty damn effective, averaging 4.6 yards per rushing attempt. Yes, he's had 101 rushing yards, 101 rushing attempts, 461 rushing yards, and 6 rushing touchdowns. He's a bruiser, and he can run. But and he can definitely run. But also, they have a backup in Austin Eckler, who's definitely used for shortage yards. And although he doesn't have like that same speed when he was with the LA Chargers, he still has speed. And he's been pretty effective as a short distance. 63 carries, 326 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And averaging 5.2 yards per rush, which I think is effective. And now, and if I were the Eagles to try and shut off this run game, you have to attack that offensive line. And Jaden Daniels can throw the ball quickly. That is for sure, which is why this is going to be a very big test for this Eagles defensive line. They have to generate pressure. They have to blitz, and they first have to stop the run. They have to generate pressure, set up the blitz, and force Jaden Daniels to be pass happy or turn him into a headless chicken. And the one person who was able to do that college-wise when Jaden Daniels was in LSU was Jalen Carter. I think this could be a big game for Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis because, the Eagles are facing a banged-up offensive line, especially if you look at their left tackle, Cornelius, on the Commanders' offensive line. Left tackle Cornelius Lucas, center Tyler Biotish, and right tackle Sam Cosmi are somewhat banged up. So that could be highlights, or as Hollis Thomas would say, these could be pigeons in which the Eagles can attack. And if you want to talk about Lucas, they have had him on a rotation along with on the left tackle spot along with Brandon Coleman, but they are both on the injury report this week. Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biotish, and Sam Cosmi, they've been okay, but they've been mid. But when they're running the ball, that's when they can be a little bit deadly. But and this is where I think this could be a big game for Zach Bond. I forgot to mention that Zach Bond was chosen to be the NFC Defensive Player of the Week after, with play after play, 2 forced fumbles. He's insane. He's literally insane. And I think this is where maybe you have Zach Bond playing coverage or acting as a QB spy, or have Nakobe Dean as that QB spy. Because if Jaden Daniels is rolling to the left or right, especially the left side of Cornelius Lucas this week, and he's going up against someone like Brandon Graham or Josh Sweat, or I'm saying this, and I think Jimmy Kempski says this on the Philly Voice, which I think is very, very valuable. Maybe the Eagles can go, hear me out, they can try and use more of Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. If Bryce Huff is on the limited snap count and he's able to attack and still get some productivity from there, maybe that's the route you go because that rotation works well. And I think attacking the left side against Lucas, maybe you put in either Graham or Sweat or maybe Huff, attack that side, and you're forcing so much pressure that Jaden's on the right. That also allows for the safeties and Reed Blankenship and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to get ready, because this is going to be the biggest test for the Eagles. There's an Eagle killer, and his name is Scary Terry, a.k.a. Terry McLaurin, who has been the best wide receiver out of all for the Commanders. If you look at the Commanders' receiving stats, which is what I will share with you, and this is going to hurt me because there's a familiar name that I know very, very well. According to Philly Voice, the Commanders' top receivers, Terry McLaurin, 47 receptions for 711 yards. He can line up anywhere, outside, inside. And this is where the Eagles will have a somewhat of an okay. I think we can try and match it up, but we may need some help. You cannot put Darius Slay on him. But if Terry McLaurin's on the outside, luckily the Eagles have two rookie corners that can really help out. Number one, on the outside, you could put Quinyon Mitchell on him because Mitchell has done very well against top wide receivers. He's held them to at least some like 1 or 2 catches for almost like less than 40 or 50 yards for each top wide receiver. Since week 1 or something. But when Quinyon Mitchell has been targeted, and of course Cooper DeJean, who can easily cover that slot position. I mean the nickel or the slot receiving, because Terry McLaurin, he can attack both on the outside and on the inside, and he has that yak ability, yards per catch. This is the big one. And also, don't forget Zach Ertz. Yes. Eagles legend Zach Ertz, the guy who caught a crucial 4th down catch and the game-winning touchdown against the New England Patriots in that 2017-2018 Super Bowl. 37 for catches for 381 yards. He's basically a yak monster, but so far, like, he's been good. And then, of course, Noah Brown, former Texas wide receiver, and who can forget, his namesake is tied for that Hail Mary against Chicago, the Hail Noah. And of course, Austin Eckler, who's a great pass-catching running back. Olamide Zaccheaus, old Eagles legend, and De'Ami Brown, one of the late-round picks from the Commanders, who took over Jahan Dotson's place before Dotson went over to the Eagles on that trade. But yes, but Terry McLaurin, 10 career games against the Eagles, he has had 58 catches for 847 yards and 4 touchdowns. So this means you need to put Quinyon Mitchell on him when he's going outside. If he's trying to go inside, Cooper DeJean has to be on him. And maybe you try and put Reed Blankenship and or CJ Gardner-Johnson, or you maybe try and put CJ Gardner-Johnson on Zach Ertz or even Noah Brown. Like, you have to force Jaden Daniels to attack with other targets instead of Terry McLaurin. And luckily, we don't have to rely on the likes of Avonte Maddox and James Bradbury. Thank God for that. And I think this is, again, like, this is going to be a very, I mean, even this is like what I think that can happen, but it's going to be a challenge for sure. And the Commanders are that rising team in which they should not be, I mean, yeah, they're to not be taken lightly. And I mean, I mean, like, the reason why I'm like kind of hesitant about this, because this Commanders offense is going to be very, very explosive. They run a lot of zone read, which the Eagles have not been able to see. Hopefully, Vic Fangio has some kind of idea to stop that zone reads and develop counters. Although he has a quick turnaround, Commanders will also be banged up because after that crucial loss, they will be traveling to Philly and see if they can take care of business. So with that being said, I think the Eagles will pull off a win, but it'll be very, very close. I think it could be a very tight game, 28-21 Eagles. That's what I'm taking. And yeah, I think and with Darius Slay, if you can match up with Noah Brown, that'd be good. But I think I would trust more with Isaiah Rodgers. He's done pretty well if he has that safety help. And maybe you put in Keely Ringo in some plays. Who knows? And special teams, it's got to be on point. And yeah, I think with this being said, this concludes Season 3, Episode 23 of NFL Masala. And with that being said, if you like our content, make sure you check out our podcast on the following platforms: Google, Spotify, iTunes, Pocket Cast. Season 3 is also on YouTube. You can leave us, if you have any questions, please reach out to us with NFLmasala@gmail.com. That is NFLMASALA@gmail.com, all lowercase. They can also find us on season 3 is available on YouTube. So make sure you like, share, subscribe. And if you also want to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter/X and Instagram, all with the same username, all lowercase, at NFL Masala 2022. Again, at NFL Masala 2022. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and fly, Eagles, fly. Take care and have